Welcome to the first of a three-part webinar series on implementing integrated education and training, or IET, sponsored by World Education in an effort to share effective and emerging models in the field. This first webinar focuses on programming in rural settings and features programs from Maine, Minnesota, and Virginia that will share with us how they developed services that were responsive to their particular contexts. I want to thank you for attending today after a very long election night. There's a lot of thinking to do about how this election will affect our work and the adult students who need education and training services. But today we'll focus on the good work that's happening around the country and that our colleagues are very gracious to share with us. Before we do introductions, let me turn this over to Ben Bruno to make sure you know how to participate in this webinar platform.
Thanks, Andy. So just to go over a couple quick things. You'll notice that you're probably listening to this via audio broadcast, meaning that it's just one-way oral communication, since we've got so many folks attending the webinar today. So just the panelists will be speaking, but we would like to hear from you, and the way to do that would be via the chat window. If you don't see the chat window, please take a look in the top right area of your WebEx screen and look for the chat bubble, and it says chat underneath, and you can click that button to toggle the chat window on and off. If you don't see it in the top right and you're on a Mac, it might also be somewhere on the bottom right area. Once you have the chat window open and you're ready to send a chat question or a comment, take a look at the slide where I've indicated the part of the chat window that we want to make sure you change to send to all participants. So you can send private chats to me, Ben Bruno, the host, if you have any tech trouble or questions. But otherwise, we'd really like you to send to all participants. And make sure you send to all participants and not all attendees. All attendees is something different, and unfortunately, we cannot disable that. We want you to send to all participants, please, and thank you. Also, if at any point any of the slides or pictures or images on the slide are hard for you to see, you can go look on the top right area from the slide, and there's little magnifying plus and minus, zoom in and out buttons there that you can use. Okay, I think that's it for me, Andy. Again, we are recording this webinar, so and also so you don't have to take copious notes. You can always go back and review. And it will be posted at least on the NCTN website. Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Okay, so many programs have been offering IET for a long time, but IET is getting renewed attention now that it is a key component of adult education funded by the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA. There have been many excellent presentations on the nuts and bolts of the new regulations that guide integrated education and training under WIOA, and we're not going to replicate that today. Rather, we're going to focus on program-level implementation in a series that pulls together examples from 9 states and touches on a wide range of industry sectors. We organized the series around 3 topics that we'd heard a lot of questions about. The first is IET in rural settings, where the population is dispersed and it may be challenging to fill a cohort for the particular career pathway that's open. The second is about offering IET for English language learners, especially those with a limited education who may not aim for a post-secondary credential but need a career path. The programs presenting in that webinar will describe IET in the sectors of culinary arts, building maintenance, and entrepreneurship. And then the final webinar will be about the ways programs have contextualized the IBEST model to fit the local resources and systems that they work within. Several, if not most of the programs being highlighted in the series pre-exist WIOA. So if they don't currently meet the letter of the Act, they are at least well on the way. And as WIOA gets interpreted by the states, these experienced programs can help us all understand their promising practices and how to avoid their missteps. Oh, I'm having trouble moving my slide here. Okay. So just so you have a face to put to our voices, here are the series co-facilitators. I'm Andy Nash, Director of the New England Literacy Resource Center, and I'm turning it over now to Ellen Hewitt, Director of the National College Transition Network.
Thanks, Andy. And I also want to extend a warm welcome and share my appreciation for your choice to join us today. Thank you. The organizations represented in this webinar reflect a range of sectors and geographic locations. There are other unique contextualized elements that are in their stories. Among these elements are level of unemployment in the region, role of employer, type of funding supports, program design elements, immigrant participation, and catalysts for building partnerships. I encourage you to listen with me to tease out the unique elements within each of the programs that we are learning about today. In addition to listening for unique contextualized elements, we encourage you to see how these themes, I'm sure you will find others, are reflected in all of the presentations. Increased participation, partnership potential, calling out the best practices that we're learning from 3 of them today, and the diversified funding strategy, all are opportunities of IET. So WIOA is the catalyst for our needing to think more about IET, if we have not already done so. This slide provides a summary of the main points that WIOA provides to guide us regarding IET. Please note that this wording is not the federal language of the legislation, and also that states may have additional guidance to help direct your work. Before we hear from Plugged In Virginia presenters, I want to tell you about the overall structure of the webinar. As you may already have guessed, you will hear 3 presentations from the organizations already introduced to you. Our aim is to ask presenters, once their formal presentation is complete, a question or 2 before going on to the next presentation. I encourage you to post questions in the chat box as you think of one. In addition to asking questions between the presentations, there will be a question and answer period after the last organization shares their IET program. The presentation on Plugged In Virginia Career Pathway Bridge Program is offered by Linda Allen and Karen Gent. Welcome, Linda and Karen. Linda has served as the Regional Program Manager for Southwest Regional Adult Education in Virginia, serving the Coalfield counties of Buchanan, Dickinson, Russell, and Tazewell since 2005. Also, Linda is the recipient of the 2016 Outstanding Adult Education Leadership Award from the Virginia Association for Adult and Continuing Education. Congratulations, Linda. Karen Gent is the lead teacher for Southwest Regional Adult Education in Virginia. Karen has been an adult education instructor for the past 13 years with a focus on Plugged In Virginia programs since 2009. Also, it's exciting to share that Karen is being awarded the 2016 Virginia Association for Adult and Continuing Education Joan E.D. Kushner Teacher of the Year Award. Congratulations to you, Karen. I believe that Linda is starting us off with the presentation. Linda?
Yes. Hello, this is Linda Allen. I want to share with you some thoughts about Plugged In Virginia. Plugged In Virginia is a career pathways bridge program that prepares adult learners with the knowledge, skills, and credentials they need to succeed in post-secondary education, training, and high-demand, high-wage careers in the 21st century. Plugged In Virginia was created by the Virginia Adult Learning Resource Center, a division of the Literacy Institute at Virginia Commonwealth University, in close collaboration with the Virginia Department of Education, Office of Adult Education and Literacy, and the Virginia Community College System. Funded by an innovation grant from the Governor's Cabinet and a grant from the Virginia Department of Education, Plugged In Virginia was designed to create a career pathways program for the IT sector in rural Southwest Virginia. Success in Southwest Virginia led to Plugged In Virginia being added as a line item in the governor's budget and propelled the model across the Commonwealth. Since 2009, Plugged In Virginia has grown to serve more than 810 students who have completed nearly 88 cohorts. This chart represents the 34 cohorts offered in our 4 rural counties in Southwest Virginia. While raising their basic skills, participants earn workforce credentials leading to employment or continued studies at the post-secondary level. It's the partners that make it work. Plugged In Virginia begins with an employer's need. It operates primarily through adult education, with the community college being a full-fledged partner in curriculum development and service delivery. The Workforce Development Board, a core partner, identifies funding sources for tuition that could not be paid fully under Pell. Outcomes to date include 79% have received a Microsoft Digital Literacy Certificate, 71% have received a Career Readiness Certificate, 90% have received college credits. In the advanced manufacturing cohorts, 74% have earned at least one industry-recognized credential. In the nursing, certified nursing assistant with enhanced skills cohorts, 95% were board certified. The key elements of Plugged In Virginia include an accelerated delivery, typically lasting 6 to 8 months to program completion, with a rigorous curriculum consisting of approximately 20 or more hours per week. The model includes integrated education and training combining industry, contextualized basic skills instruction with post-secondary training. There is co-enrollment in adult education and post-secondary education or training with career coaching and supportive services. Industry-recognized certification attainment combined with job experience, employment opportunities, and stackable industry credentials and/or transferable college credits are central to the design. Each cohort strives to have an active business partner who offers guaranteed job interviews to program completers. It operates in a student cohort, and each cohort completes a capstone project, which may include a public presentation of the project. Developing Plugged In Virginia cohorts in our rural area is not without its challenges. For us, the major decline in the coal industry has negatively impacted the region, leaving service and retail industries and healthcare accounting for most of the jobs in the area. We are also experiencing population loss, high poverty levels, and an unemployment rate ranging from 6.1% to 9.9%. The workplace is fundamentally being transformed as economic developers explore tourism, advanced manufacturing, and cybersecurity as industries to boost the economy. We are confident that Plugged In Virginia will have a significant role as the region begins to retrain, retool, and re-engineer.
Hello everyone, this is Karen Gent. The Plugged In Virginia Adult Education Curriculum focuses on 4 content areas: basic skills development, professional soft skills, digital literacy skills, and 21st century skills. For each cohort, we develop a schedule of courses utilizing a block scheduling format. An example of that is math being taught during the first semester of the program and business etiquette being taught the second semester, rather than both courses being taught the entire 6 months of the program. The curriculum is delivered with team teaching, meaning that there are 2 adult education instructors who divide the subjects being taught. This structure has proved to work very well for us. In basic skills development, we focus on reading, writing, and mathematics. Each of these subjects is contextualized for the specific field of study. And if we are partnering with a community college, students may earn college credit for these areas of instruction. For reading, there are several different texts that are used in the classroom. In each 6-month-long cohort, students study the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and also read a book that focuses on college survival skills called 100 Things Every Adult College Student Should Know. Students who do not have a high school level credential also work in an online GED prep program, which encompasses both reading and writing. Since writing is critical to success in the workplace, students study both the technical and creative aspects of writing and complete a variety of work-related writing projects. We'll see examples of these in just a minute. The math component is also contextualized for the field of study. For example, math for carpentry, math for welding, or math for pharmacy tech. And this math course prepares students to take the Applied Mathematics Work Keys Assessment and the Mathematical Reasoning GED test if needed. To address digital literacy skills, we integrate the Microsoft Digital Literacy Program, which allows students to complete a series of lessons that cover computer basics, information literacy, internet use and security, and telecommunication. After completing the lessons, students take and pass an assessment to earn a Microsoft Digital Literacy Certificate. A critical part of the curriculum is the development of professional soft skills. This is an area that employers request us to teach because they see a need for these skills in their pool of job applicants. The goal of the curriculum is for students to learn to be successful employees by practicing professionalism, using proper etiquette, exercising self-management, and becoming effective communicators through listening, verbal, and written skills. Students in each cohort work toward earning a career readiness certificate that provides recognition of their work readiness skills. One favorite project we do prepares students for professional dress in the workplace. Participants are given a $150 clothing allowance and commissioned to shop for suitable workplace and interview clothing. And then students give a presentation to the class showing what was purchased. Instructors often invite local professionals in the specific field of study to come speak to the classes. Cohorts are also taken on field trips to tour possible places of employment. These field trips have, in many cases, resulted in employment for students. In addition, a significant amount of time is spent on preparing for a job interview, culminating in a mock job interview conducted by a panel that includes industry-specific employers. In all areas of the curriculum, instructional practices involve integrated application, collaborative learning activities, and career-focused field experiences. Through the delivery of this curriculum, students are gaining 21st century skills that are needed to succeed in today's workplace. 21st century skills encompass learning skills such as critical thinking, creative thinking, collaborating, and communicating. Literacy skills such as information, media, and technology literacy, and life skills such as flexibility, initiative, social skills, productivity, and leadership. Students are given many opportunities to practice these skills and to exercise their creativity and innovation through problem-solving activities. Throughout the program, students are put in learning situations where they must work in teams and collaborate to come up with solutions to problems. These 21st century skills are practiced further by the development of a capstone project in which students use the knowledge and skills they have gained throughout the course of the program. You are now looking at a list of notable capstone projects that our cohorts have completed. I will mention just a few examples and you can read through the others. An IT cohort built a computer and donated it to an educational facility. Another IT cohort designed marketing materials for an educational facility. A construction and weatherization cohort actually weatherized low-income homes in the area. A software quality assurance cohort tested software on programs developed by a programming class. A para-optometric cohort volunteered at a RAN clinic, which is a remote area medical clinic that is held each year in our region. If you would like more information about Plugged in Virginia, please contact Linda or me by phone or email.
Thank you, Karen and Linda. So well done. And I can see how the quality of your program propelled your model across the Commonwealth of Virginia. We'll have an opportunity to pull out some of the unique elements of your program and the others represented today once we've heard from our colleagues in Minnesota and Maine. Andy, are there questions for Linda and Karen?
Not yet in the chat. We'll pull the chat box questions a little bit later. I just have a question because Linda, I think, mentioned the decline in the coal industry and how many coal industry workers are perhaps displaced. And I'm wondering, Linda, if you could say something more about what it's been like to reskill and prepare those workers for this whole new array of new jobs.
This certainly has been a huge challenge for us. We are receiving quite a bit of financial support to offer different types of retraining in the area. The problem that we are facing is that the coal industry was provided the employees with high wage, good benefits, and we do not have very many, if any, comparable employers in the region for those displaced workers to train to move into. So it's been very frustrating. And coal miners, you know, when you think of the mining industry, it's not just the laborers who are working in the mines, but you have office workers and then all of the industries down the pipeline that are affected, from truck drivers to suppliers. So it has been a very significant economic impact on our community. And the workers in those industries range from the young in their 20s to many who have worked in the coal mines for 20 or 30 years. So we have a big challenge ahead of us, and we are working very hard to find a place for Plugged In to be a part of the retraining of these workers so that they can stay in Southwest Virginia, and that is one of our biggest challenges.
Thanks. So we're going to bring most of the chat questions toward, to the end, at the end, and address them. But just quickly, if you could say, address one question about how students' skills are assessed through the Capstone projects.
As you can see, the students have completed a variety of different types of capstone projects. But as they complete the projects and go through that process, the instructors are there working with the students and assessing the development of the project and the students' skills as they work through that. And at the end of the project, the students actually give a public presentation of their project where their family, friends may attend, actual employers in the area attend the capstone projects. And that is always the culminating event of the program, is the capstone project presentation.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to give our presenters a chance to look at the questions in the chat box while other people are presenting so that they can come back and comment later toward the end of the webinar. So we're going to move on now. While you're introducing folks, Ellen, I'll pass the ball. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So from Southwest Virginia, we are now traveling to Southwest Minnesota to hear about an innovative healthcare bridge program presented by Ariane Barris and Pat Thomas. Hi, Ariane and Pat.
Hello. Hi.
Hi. So Ariane is the Youth Program Manager for the Southwest Minnesota Private Industry Council. She is the workforce partner in this collaboration. Ariane has worked with youth and young adults for nearly 10 years in various wonderful and challenging capacities. Pat Thomas has been an ABE director for 17 years in southwestern Minnesota. Pat began the Fast Track journey with its inception and continues working to make Career Pathways a more effective tool for adult basic education learners. And Ariane and Pat, please start. The space is yours.
Wonderful. Well, good afternoon. This is Ariane Ferris with the Private Industry Council, or the Workforce Development System in the collaboration here. Today we are sharing a tool for programs located in rural regions to consider building a cohort of students to begin a career pathway training.
This is Pat with Adult Education. The example we will share is being used for our Certified Nursing Assistant classes. It takes the place of a seat-based bridge or pre-class held before the actual career training. We use online tools and activities for the students to complete our bridge. All the information on this model can be found on our website. Our website will be shared at the end of the presentation.
So our healthcare bridge is successfully being a joint effort of adult education, workforce development, and our local community college. In our neck of the woods, we are a very rural region. Our largest city has a population of approximately 12,000, with most other cities less than 1,000. Our region covers approximately 9,000 square miles, roughly the size of Vermont or just larger than Massachusetts. The dynamics of our region and being rural have influenced our partnerships and collaborations, which to us, by now, is simply business as usual. Some of these dynamics include our large geographic area and the distance between our communities. Oftentimes, our learners are struggling to access employment and education opportunities because of the limited transportation or lack of transportation, as well as the limited or lack of child care providers in our region. With an aging workforce and declining population in rural counties, our region continues to experience worker shortages. The unemployment rate in our region is among the lowest in Minnesota at 2.9%. which means that those individuals that are unemployed or underemployed are generally experiencing multiple challenges to employment. And they might also experience additional barriers such as disability, ex-offender status, and identification with a minority or an ethnic group. But these individuals often have limited resources and limited knowledge of career pathways and training opportunities which are available to them and also help them to attain self-sufficiency. So in order to meet the needs for a skilled workforce, we realized we cannot afford to leave any populations behind, and we've learned quickly from these influencing facts that each of our agencies cannot provide a career pathway service package alone. We needed, and still today, have to draw on the resources each of us have within our agencies. Since 2004, our partnership has generated nearly $6.4 million to provide career pathway service packages.
I would also mention that when she refers to the $6.4 million, that is just grant funds that we've been able to access and does not include the other resources we have been able to tap into. I would also share that we feel that we are very blessed to be in a rural area because we feel that they receive probably better services due to the fact that we are collaborating because we can't do it on our own. Okay, building a cohort and engagement. The unique aspect of this model is to engage the learner at the point they show interest in the training. I must share with you that due to our frequent trainings, the word is on the street to come to adult education to go through CNA training. I will discuss activities in this model next, but remember again, all this information is available on our website. We will share with you later. The activities that we have in our independent online format includes assessments. We assess students in reading, math, and computer. And after doing those assessments, each person is given assignments to address any weaknesses, and we use online tools to address those weaknesses. Must say also here, for individuals who do not prefer to use the online resources, they are able to come up to our classroom and we will help them. Then we assign LearnerWeb, if you're familiar with that. It's a tool that has a pre-healthcare content. And remember, the nice thing with using online tools is we are able to go in and check and see how many hours each individual has invested in completing these activities. Then what we do is the activities we assign also is we send them to Workforce where they complete a resume, take their creative job search class, register in Minnesota Works, which is our state job bank. Our college partner sends the individual an online career assessment tool to be completed to assure this career and this person are a good fit. Students attend a financial education class that is held monthly here in Marshall. Our students' time is at a premium, and this format gives them greater flexibility. I would also suggest that this kind of model can be adapted to be used for other career training fields in lieu of having a seat-based class to provide this format as a bridge to career pathway training.
So the learners in our pre-healthcare bridge work with the Navigator, and the Navigator is the role, a role that is provided by the Workforce Development System, or in the situation here, the Private Industry Council. Navigator services are ones which the PIC has been providing for more than 30 years, And due to the nature of the role, it seemed only fitting that our agency or the workforce development system would carry out this role in the career pathway model rather than adult education or the community college. Our resources within the workforce development system were directly in line with this very needed and proven successful component of the career pathway model. The Navigator assesses and identifies barriers and challenges and allows for relationship building between the student and the Navigator to create solutions and plans to overcome any barriers or challenges, such as childcare, transportation, maybe assisting with tools, tuition, integrated instruction, etc. For the majority, this is their first time experiencing education and employment, or they might tend to just simply struggle in education or employment-related environments. You'll notice our picture here shows a past class. Approximately 60 to 70% of the individuals are refugees, immigrants, and or folks from the minority population. And all the partners involved understand the specific needs of our students, as well as each of our partners' strengths, and which allows us to navigate for the success of the students and to do what each of us do best and ensure we are not duplicating services.
Collaboration. Collaboration is messy, it's hard, but it's well worth the effort because your students get a better service as a result of it. Successful collaboration demands that the customer is the focus first and foremost. That means no agency or person takes center stage over that student. All the agencies that are collaborating have to have the ability to respond quickly to needed changes because they happen all the time. We have to understand to be successful, there are no such things as failures, only learning opportunities. Plus, decision makers have to have a vision that working together creates a better product, even though they can't see what the finished product is going to be when they begin the process. This does not happen overnight. We've been doing this for over 10 years now, and now it is business as usual when it's in this area. Remember though, as you collaborate, everyone must win. Ariane will now share how we braid our funds and why this partnership is also a win-win for workforce.
So as previously mentioned, our partnership has generated almost $6.4 million for the delivery of our Career Pathway service packages. What we've been doing is braiding funding or using a diversified funding strategy, which allows us to tap into existing funding streams, and we're able to use them to support unified initiatives in as flexible and integrated a manner as possible. So some of these funding sources include, for example, we have a youth and adult partnership program together. So the public schools general funds makes the CNA training available to K through 12 students, and not just those academically successful. We also have our state grants through the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, some known as the Pathways to Prosperity. We also have our Adult Basic Ed General Funds, which is just another example of our collaboration. As of October 1st, 2016, adult training entities are to be reimbursed for a student's CNA training by the state if the student becomes employed at a nursing home. So just, again, an example of our collaboration coming together and making some changes in some systems. There's Pell Grants available for eligible students. In some situations, we have private pay. We have students who are just paying for the training on their own. And in other instances, we have our workforce development funds. So we have our WIOA, we are WIOA Youth, our dislocated worker, and then we also have our TANF, or in Minnesota, our Minnesota Family Investment Program, where we use funds. And all these just come together based on the individuals who are at that time of career pathway. Some other means of value gained through our collaboration for the workforce side too is our co-enrollment. It's been a proven means for participant recruitment for WIOA purposes. However, this isn't something that we just started doing, as Pat has mentioned. It's been several years, and I've been here for over 10 years. And one of our things that we've been working on for a long time is how we are able to better recruit our older youth or our out-of-school youth. And we have been using a recruitment pipeline with Adult Basic Ed now for several years, and it's been a great foundation as we move into the WIOA from the Workforce Investment Act. But in addition to that, we have also partnered with them to provide the CASAS assessment, of which we use for our literacy numeracy assessment. And that came about between figuring out how do we partner and collaborate for whether it was WIA or now WIOA purposes. So some great things have come about. It's definitely been messy and confusing and hard work. But by putting our customer as number one, we have been able to figure out how to do non-duplication of services, provide more comprehensive programming available to our customers, increase our student completion rates, their job placement rates, enhancing our relationships with employers, but ultimately creating a business model that's very sustainable.
Okay, going into some of the values gained again that we see through adult education. We can engage that student at the point they're interested in CNA. All of us know that we can have people signing up for a career pathway training. We can call them a month later and they're gone. This engages them at the point that they're interested. This also gives you a better sense of their commitment. I noticed one of the questions that was asked was, what are the online tools we use? We use LearnerWeb, which gives us an hourly count of how long they've been working in the material, and we use LearnerWeb for both computer skills and healthcare pre-CNA content. We use Skills Tutor, which of course is going away, and we'll be moving into Play-Doh for that piece. It gives agencies, and this is the thing I think that's really important as we're trying to build cohorts. It gives you a sense, if you can engage those people at the point they're interested and maintain their engagement, then what you can do is you can see how many people you have in the hopper for when you can provide a career training. Some of the other values that we see are gained is that students are able to practice more self-management as they are given all these assignments to finish. And we do have a monitoring process where the individual is asked to come in on a regular basis so we can touch base on where they're at or if they're running into problems. This provides an opportunity for us to develop a relationship with them in a supportive and encouraging environment. This is our website, and as I said, all the information that is contained, or all the forms, everything we use, plus an oral explanation to our pre-healthcare bridge, is found on our website. If you look at the top bars there and you see innovative service delivery, that is the bar you would click on, and their pre-healthcare bridge will show up, and there will be all sorts of information behind that tab. Something else that may be of interest to some of you is once you click on that innovative service delivery, there's also a curriculum we're writing currently, a reading curriculum that is set up to be a precursor to people going into CNA. There is also the explanation of our adult youth model that we do career training as, and also is the information of how, when we worked with the legislature, how we got the law changed so the state now reimburses us back for all CNA training if the individual gets a job at a long-term nursing facility.
And that concludes our presentation.
Thank you so much. I so much appreciate how, as a partnership collaboration, the challenge of building a cohort that you were able to find ways to that you couldn't do without working with each other, and how you were able to do that through partnerships to make that happen. So really appreciate that. And I know that Pat wisely found a question and answered it and incorporated it in her presentation. But Andy, do you have a question or questions that you'd like to have posed now, or wait until the end of the presentations?
Well, there's just something, it seems like several questions relate to how you identify and address the barriers of students. So since your navigators are being provided from workforce, the workforce partners,
Right.
How do the navigators assess the educational barriers? What tools do they use? And how are your partners meeting the needs of your English language learning students? It looks like they're mixed in with the English speakers in the same cohort. Those are two kind of.
I will first of all speak.
Go ahead.
I will speak to that in that for people to begin, we set and we use CASAS as our assessing tool, and we use 230 as our cutoff. So if you want to go into CNA, you're going to need to be at a level of 230 or higher. If you are not at a 230, we encourage them to participate more in our ESL classes or make use of the content that I referred to that's on our web page. But that, as far as English learners, there is a cutoff to where that we use, because without that, all you do is set people up for failure.
And so then, as far as the other barriers that we are looking into, it's more kind of just through roadblocks to employment questions, just kind of inquiring again about backgrounds and any disabilities or any sort of challenges, the childcare, the transportation. So kind of all those other things that you find in a Maslow's hierarchy of needs is what our navigator is assessing. But we take the information as far as what that educational barrier may be and worked with our adult education system to ensure that they are at a point to move forward into the training.
So we take everything we gather from the individual, put it together to determine if the individual successfully can move forward, or do they need additional supports from either one of us before they go forward.
Do you want to speak to the ESL thing?
We can discuss that at the next, when we have the open question and answer period. Okay. So you can have a chance to pull your thoughts together. How would it be do that? Okay. And okay, so
Ariane, I need the ball so I can move slides.
That's right. So we've been to Southwest Virginia, we've been to Southwest Minnesota, and now we're going to Aroostook County, Maine, and it's a county that's located along the Canada-U.S. border, very far to our north. Hello to our presenters, Dan McDonald and Lynn Michaud-Smith. Hi, Dan and Lynn. Are you in? Okay. So Dan is the director. Dan McDonald is the Director of Adult Education for Eastern Aroostook Adult and Community Education. He serves on the Northeast Workforce Development Board and Board of Directors for the Aroostook County Action Program. Lynn Michaud-Smith is the Academic Coordinator of Adult Education for Eastern Aroostook Adult and Community Education. She has 20 years of experience in public relations, development, and corporate training. Dan and Lynn, the space is now yours.
So career pathways for rural programs like ours here in Northern Maine do present multiple challenges for employees, along with educators and businesses, because of sheer distance between employment and academic opportunities. We have an aging or older population, and our economy does fluctuate. Our employers do require more complex skills than for entry-level jobs. So compounding these challenges, nearly 10% of the regional population is lower literacy. Our unemployment rate typically is double the state average, and these factors show that our programs must be agile enough to adapt to the changing employment and training needs, but still hold true to the academic and basic educational skills building.
To address these challenges, our local Workforce Development Board convened a focused sector group which identified increased pressure and competition within the forestry industry for boiler operators as a primary concern. This committee included 3 of the 11 forestry manufacturing facilities along the Route 11 corridor, and they included a wood pellet manufacturer, a lumber manufacturer, and a natural wood siding manufacturer, as well as the adult education and higher education and our local service providers. After we dug a little deeper, we found that this was a much broader problem. It included our food processors and a local paper manufacturer, and totaling 23 facilities, and involving 3,500 workers in the region, as well as affecting another 3,000 workers in related agriculture, wholesale, transportation, and food processing. So as you can see, the workforce development needs that had been identified in the forest industry spilled over into other sectors and grew into a regional concern. And as often is the case, the highly competitive rural labor market, it turned out that that shortage of, in one area that was caused by the demand, increased demand from 2 new plants coming online, compounded an already existing shortage. Making matters worse, the majority of the existing boiler operators are nearing retirement and aging out of the workforce, and they have no succession plan setting up for a potential crisis situation. So the plants were facing the likelihood of having to shut down shifts that they couldn't cover because of a lack of boiler operators, and of course this jeopardized the 3,500 workers that depended on them. It was at this point that we set out to identify how adult education could support the efforts to build the boiler operator workforce. There we go. For us, funding is always an issue when it comes to industry-specific training. Individuals often can't afford the training or even know that the need exists, and our businesses, they're not always willing to invest in the training even though they've expressed the need. With the distance between adult education programs and facilities, it's often difficult to create a cohort large enough to cover the cost of the training and provide for sustainability, especially with industry-specific one-up trainings. This brings us to the IET, or the Integrated Education Training Grant, which supported this particular activity. The grant was established from carryover money for workforce training that the main Department of Labor had. They gave it to the Department of Education to establish pilot programs for integrated education and training. Since we were already well down the road of developing an IET program, and there was little turnaround time for developing and executing this work, we were able to develop a strong winning grant proposal, and we were one of 5 grants awarded in the state at $64,000. The funding helped eliminate all the concerns I mentioned earlier and provided the supports needed so we could actually focus on a program and training that would look like it would in an ideal situation.
Often in rural communities, informal communication with partners is common. However, more formalized partnerships with businesses and service partners were essential to success for participants in career pathways, with long-term goals for increased employability and advancement within an industry. Much of the groundwork for this IET grant-funded boiler operator career pathway was already in place. We did convene a partnership consortium to bring our key players to the table. All participants were invested in planning and implementation of the boiler operated training. I will say, though, providing lunch as an incentive always helps bring people to the table. So with representatives from labor, industry, and education and community organizations, it allowed us to formulate a shared plan for implementation of an organized training. We were able to define the initial goals on pathway for boiler operator, in addition to providing industry insight and employment requirements for skills, knowledge, and training. Our business partners also provided tours, job shadowing, and the required on-the-job training.
Our timeline for implementation was short because we received the funding approval less than 2 months before the boiler operating training course was already scheduled to start at the Northern Maine Community College. This gave us limited time to recruit participants from across the county. With our partners, we set a cap of 20 trainees because the community college could only accommodate 25 participants, and some of the slots were already reserved by 2 manufacturers. To advance along the boiler operator career pathway, a participant must complete an approved boiler operator training course, followed by 3 months apprenticeship or on-the-job training. The next step is applying and taking the boiler operator exam for state certification. With the certification, the initial step in the career pathway is considered complete.
We envision the IET Boiler Operator Training Program as a means to blend incumbent workers with those who were unemployed or underemployed, who had barriers to employment, and encouraging persistence and completion. A representative from one of our local mills, along with our service providers, joined us for an orientation session with our participants. At that session, our participants learned about skills and interests that were necessary for boiler operators. With our community partners, we presented information on reducing barriers for eligible participants. Ultimately, however, only 3 of our 19 were eligible for support. To make things equal, we offered to cover the cost of travel to the class every Thursday evening for all of our participants. And then it came time for assessments, so we provided pizza before giving those assessments in reading and math. Informed by these results, we assisted the participants in determining their own objectives and needs along a continuum of knowledge and experience. And I will say not every participant needs to build math or reading skills, just as not every participant needs to have support for barriers to employment. The majority of our participants needed very little academic skill building, and their integrated individual learning plans identified only occasional tutoring needs during the boiler operator training course. We did have 2 students who needed to earn a high school credential, which is a requirement to apply for the boiler operator training license. So they did persist, and they did successfully pass the high-set equivalency exam. For tutoring and academic skills building, we focused on seamless integration of boiler operator material into lesson plans. Since 2012, all of our ABE/ASE coursework has been contextualized, and it's based on a learner's chosen career or career exploration. The lessons plans that we developed use the text that would be used in the boiler operator training course. It did allow us to work through understanding algebraic equations for boiler operators. For example, using the equation for discharge from a system, we applied math proficiencies in measurement, geometry and conversion, as well as equations and functions with discussions about size of the pipes, temperature, pressure, and constants. We were also able to build in the skill of reading gauges for information necessary to fill in variables in an equation. And a major takeaway from the boiler operator IET has shown that a team teaching approach with an educator partnered with a career professional to collaborate on developing lesson plans is essential.
The career pathway can take between 12 and 15 years to become a boiler operator first class. A person must hold the initial license and work in the industry for 1 year to be eligible to apply for the 4th class boiler operator. Then each successive step is 3 years before taking the next exam in the continuum to boiler operator first class. The mills and manufacturers shared with us that they provide support to incumbent workers to gain additional experience and training through the mentoring and going forward into the future. We will continue to partner with them to provide test-taking and study skills along with academic support. Additionally, as incumbent workers move up the progression they create openings and opportunities for others downstream in the organization. Working with the employer to develop a training and succession plan and career pathway will prevent future crises and make it smoother transitions for workers.
And now we have affiliated connections. Our business partners identified a need to build training skills for the employees who would be providing mentorship throughout the on-the-job training portion. The Train the Trainer course was provided at the business site and incorporated understanding the needs of adult learners, as well as developing skills at creating lesson plans and training in difficult environments. For this training, I did spend time, along with Dan, within the facility to identify and experience the challenges that our trainers would face. then prepared training booklets, presentations, and spent 16 hours training 8 employee mentors, providing them with tips and skills to effectively provide OJT for fellow employees.
We need to be sensitive to the balance between providing training to meet the needs of the current workforce as well as preparing for projected needs without saturating the workforce with trained individuals that have difficulty finding work in the region. It's too easy to keep running a training even though it's no longer needed. There is no shortage of demand for our services because once partnerships are created and training is conducted, it doesn't take long for new training needs to be identified. As a result of the boiler operator training, the partners have come forward with all kinds of new ideas and training needs, as well as what they're willing to and prepared to bring to the table to make it happen. One of these needs is for off-road CDL drivers, and a few of the larger manufacturers have offered even to let us use their equipment if we can put it together. We have a lot of work ahead of us since our local workforce development board has identified IT, health, and hospitality as high demand sectors along with the manufacturing and construction. Fortunately, we are working with other regional adult education programs to help carry the load, and we feel that we have a great start with our high pressure boiler operator model to follow.
And that concludes our presentation portion.
Yeah. Well, I know there's some things you also had to say about challenges, so maybe you could tell us about some challenges that you experienced in your program, and then there's a chat box question I want to pose to you.
Okay, so we included a candidate selection is what we would have done with our partners to increase persistence of trainees. Only 11 of our 19 participants did pass the course. Once several of them entered a boiler room on a tour, they dropped the class because they decided it just was not right for them. 3 had taken the course to enhance knowledge. Only 6 immediately applied for training permits after the course and started their OJT. Most of our participants are still working on their training because when so many boiler operators are trained at once, the capacity for training with an engineer is dictated by schedules and other business requirements. However, on the plus side, all of the engineers assist with preparing for the state exam. So that was a real plus for us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I want to go to the chat where there's a question about your partnership, because you have an interesting partnership that started as a sector partnership and then grew beyond it, and maybe that's what the question refers to. So the question is, who convened the partnership consortium, and did one of the participating institutions lead? The question about politics and who kind of controls the agenda.
That's a great question. We're very fortunate within this region that we have a great collaboration and partnership with our one-stop service providers, DHHS and business and higher education. So the answer to that question is it kind of depends on who takes the lead based on who brought the need to the partnership. In this particular case, the Workforce Development Board pulled together the sector committee and brought in the forest industry to say, okay, what do you need? But then Adult Ed, our program, actually convened the work committee with the businesses, higher ed, and our service providers because we wanted to move the initiative forward. So it's like, okay, what do we do as a program to move this forward and make it happen with all of our partners and provide those employment needs? And of course, the IET grant came along after the fact, and it took off like a rocket. So in this particular case, we initiated it.
Okay, great. So thank you. Ellen, may I transfer it over to the open it to the questions?
I think that's a good idea, Andy. And I could see it. I'm so glad to see there's so many questions that are being compiled here. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I've tried to cluster a few questions, and there's some that are aimed at one particular program to answer, but some that I think cross programs. So let me go back to one that was specifically asked about the Virginia program. There were a cluster of questions that had to do with your recruitment, how your students were selected, whether there was a specific reading level required to enter the program, and if you have English language learners in the program that have different supports that are needed and whether they're recruited and included as well. So can you speak to that general kind of category of questions of your recruitment and selection of students and support? You may be muted because we're not hearing you.
As far as recruitment of students, we use a variety of methods for recruitment. One of the main things that we do is create a postcard for the cohort that's being offered, and we send that out to every mailing address in the region or counties where the program is being offered. We also put advertisements in our local newspapers, and those are our basic means of recruiting. We also, with our partnering community college, have recruiters who will go out into public events and businesses and recruit from there, and also at the Virginia Employment Commission office.
Okay, and actually maybe others of you might want to speak to this recruiting issue, because that seems to be an issue in a rural community, that you just don't have enough people necessarily to fill a cohort. Do others of you want to kind of respond to a general question about recruitment and filling your slots? There's a question here specifically that came up to you about getting enough students to run separate math and other skill area classes for each career area.
This is from Minnesota, and although we don't do separate math ones and such, I can't speak to that. A lot of our recruitment, I would say, is word of mouth. What we will do if we're going to be doing another CNA class, we are contacting, and we maintain, we try to maintain very good records of their email addresses or ability to text them. And previous successful people who have been successful in career training in the past, then we send the information to them so they can share it with their circle of friends that this opportunity is coming up again.
This is Karen from Virginia. One recruitment method I forgot to mention was that we recruit from our existing adult ed classes, the students who are in those classes working on getting a GED or just working on basic skills. We recruit from that pool of students.
Right.
This is Lynn from Maine. I'd like to talk about our marketing plan. We do have a comprehensive marketing plan, and for this particular instance, we had no issues filling a class at all. We had incumbent workers from our business partners, as well as some public relations that an article or a show ran on our local news. And afterwards, we had more calls than we could field for a short time there, or people who wanted to participate. So really, it's all about how important, whether it's a high-demand, high-wage job, what type of career pathway they're looking for, and also career interests. Our partners with ACAP, they also send us potential applicants as well, and we just kind of go with our entire pool.
Okay, thanks. And what about another aspect of being in a rural community is that you don't necessarily have that many jobs in any one career pathway, although maybe now with healthcare, that's just a big, always we need people in healthcare now. But do you need to rotate your industry sector cohorts? Because, for example, you're gonna have enough boiler operators at some point, and then what will happen? And I think that is a question I would pose to all of you. What happens when a job, a career pathway area or a sector is kind of saturated for the kind of jobs that were needed, that you had programming for?
This is Minnesota. A lot of our career pathway training is in the field of healthcare and doing the CNA, TMA, medical terminology career pathway. And that by no means has gotten saturated, basically because a lot of our people, we try to hook them up with our college, and a lot of our people have gone on beyond being a CNA, so they don't stop at that. So we're not seeing a saturation by any means. And some of the other trainings that we do, welding, for instance, there's a lot of encouragement for people, go ahead, take the welding, but then can we transfer to get an AA or an associate's degree at our college? So we're not seeing saturation because we're seeing people move up the pipeline.
So if anything, I would say we're looking for more models to be able to help these individuals continue to advance. Yeah. And even sometimes creating new programs, like one of our things we're talking about now is early childhood education, because it's in demand and we have lack of child care providers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is Dan.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You did mention that you're moving on to the need for truck drivers, so go ahead.
Right, I was going to say I addressed that in the presentation because that's one thing you always have to be sensitive to is flooding the market. You know, so you take 23 facilities, 3 shifts, that's 69 boiler operators, and then you have different levels. But there does become a point where it's so specific that you don't want to saturate that market, so you have to always keep in touch with the employers. And that's why I talk about the succession plan. You know, if you know that there are 70 some odd boiler operators in your region and some of them are going to be aging out, you kind of have to coordinate those trainings to make sure they take place. But you can always use that as a model to provide trainings for all of these other issues that come up or needs that come up along the way, as well as training those downstream folks. And we've been doing allied health CNA trainings for forever. And sometimes we do as many as 60 a year here, 60 different individuals, and we have absolutely no chance of saturating the market because there's such a high demand. But on the other side of that, a number of years ago, everybody needed CDL drivers, and everybody trained CDL drivers, and all of a sudden, nobody needed CDL drivers anymore. So, but that's coming back big time. So it's really about working with the local workforce development board and employers and trying to keep your finger on the pulse of those upcoming needs, the current needs, but also the upcoming needs.
I would echo what he's saying. It's definitely, one needs to be working with your workforce and really closely with your employers, so you're meeting their needs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have another question I want to ask all of you, and then maybe we can get back to some of the program-specific questions that have come in. Most of you, if not all of you, have been doing this kind of programming since before the passage of WIOA, and I'm wondering how those new regulations have impacted your programming, whether you've made any changes or whether it was set pretty much beforehand.
This is Minnesota. I would say that as WIOA has come into effect, we just find that what we have been doing is showing up as to what we should be doing. So we're feeling very affirmed in what we're doing as we're moving forward.
That's great. That is great.
Sorry, this is Dan from Maine again. Here in Maine, the state, they've been working together for career pathways and career pathways plans for about 5 years, maybe a little longer. So we're pretty well down that path towards what WIOA requirements are. So for instance, in our CNA program, We've been working for a long time to contextualize the instruction, integrate workplace essentials trainings, on-the-job trainings, and really kind of building it out as a holistic training instead of just a one-up, here's a CNA course, go to work. So I think WIOA basically is validating all of the work that we've been doing for a number of years. And the exciting thing for me is that now there's another funding mechanism that I can actually use those WIOA funds to support these activities. And that's an exciting change for us.
This is Lynn from Maine as well. I'd like to give you a specific example. 5 years ago, I was working with a student who was from the Philippines. She was an English language learner, and I actually sat in the CNA class with her through the entire semester so that if she had any questions that were specific to language, I was right there. So I worked very closely with the CNA instructor to coordinate those things. So it's not something new that we've been doing, but it's really validated by WIOA.
This is Linda in Virginia. I just wanted to agree with everything that the others have said. As we have moved into WIOA, we have found that what we were doing prior to that was exactly what we should be doing, and we've just continued, and our partnerships have just strengthened as we have moved into WIOA. We have found that our outcomes are perfectly matched to the required performance measures of WIOA, and so we feel like that the relationship under WIOA is only going to enhance the work that we've already begun.
So, being experienced programs, is there any advice that you would prioritize for programs that are newer to IET programming and are just thinking about exploring those possibilities?
This is Minnesota, and I guess one of the things, and I'm sure everybody has a few items that are near and dear to them as to how to collaborate better, but to me it's about developing relationships. It's not an agency working with an agency, but it's people developing relationships, which translates down the road to agencies working with agencies or employers working with agencies. But it's all about relationships and getting out of your silo.
Others, advice from what you've learned?
I guess I would just say, again, this is Minnesota, but I think one of my things, or our things too, is just keeping that student number one, because once you are keeping them on their focus and what their goals are, you are beginning to work with other and build those relationships times you don't even know that it's happening.
This is Maine. I would echo all of the above. Those collaborations and those partnerships are key, and really the involvement in your local workforce development board. We work real closely with the career center, so we know when there's a new business coming into the area and what their trainings may need. Sometimes these needs come up and you haven't projected them because we're such a small area. If we have a new place move in that needs 50 people and they're going to start in 6 months, that kind of alters your plans a little bit. But it's really about not just, as someone said, the silos. It's about having a system in place that addresses workplace needs and the individual learner needs with wraparound services. So it's not like they come to me and it's like, here's what I can do, and then they find another agency. It's like we all work really closely together. So I have a client and we have a client in common. How do we bring those services together? How do we work with business to provide experiences? And how do we get them gainfully employed?
Great. So I think we have time. I'm sorry, did someone else want to jump in?
Yeah, this is Virginia. I was just going to comment that I think the cultural shift begins when we become familiar and comfortable with the WIOA partners, and the collaborate, and then when they become more comfortable collaborating with the adult education instructors. that's when we really begin to see things happening. And that happens as you spend time together working on these different projects. So it is truly all about relationships, spending time with each other until you become familiar and comfortable with each other.
Okay, thanks. I think we have time for just one more question before we need to start wrapping up. And I'm wondering if I can volunteer you folks for answering some of the program-specific questions that have come in that we didn't have time to get to, and perhaps we could send those out with the webinar link if you're willing to do that. But the question to all of you that I think is pertinent, it just came in, and the question is anything being done to provide training for students who are working at lower NRS or EFL levels? Like, what is your level minimum? Is it a minimum or maximum for students entering your program and it to be successful?
Yeah, this is Lynn from Maine. We address levels 1 through 6 at all times. So if we're working with the very lowest literacy levels, they start in our classrooms with career exploration. So then they can progress to training when they enter into the EFL level 3. And we do provide supports along the way, along with tutors. And so the training is really differentiated and proficiency-based and completely individualized. And so we don't limit anyone based on literacy, other than if there is a requirement for the state, and then we have to build them to the point that they're ready for that.
This is Minnesota. Something we've done that's been, I think, rather unique is that for our lower level EFL individuals, for a lot of them, what they're seeking to do is to get some sense of what the careers are out there. So we're partnering with our workforce center, and what we do is we do workforce language literacy during the week, and then 2 or 3 times during the week there are volunteer opportunities given to the students where they can go out and try maybe working at the thrift shop so they can find out what it would be like working in a store, stocking shelves. We have them helping at the senior center where they're helping with food prep so they can get more of a sense of that. We have folks working on a variety of tasks. They are helping at the library as a volunteer activity. And so these individuals are getting opportunities to try out different careers, hands-on opportunities to do it, plus they're getting out into the community, which is the greatest gift that is given to them. And what we find is by getting out into the community, they're gaining greater confidence, and they get jobs as a result of that.
In Virginia, we are expanding our pipeline from literacy to careers for the Plugged In Virginia program. Most, if not all, of the cohorts that we have offered in Southwest Virginia have been geared toward the career level, which targets the 9th through 12th grade basic skills level. But we are now piloting some projects which would include the pathways level, which targets literacy through 4th grade, and the workforce level, which targets 5th to 8th grade basic skills level. So this is a very exciting time for us as we expand the Plugged In Virginia program to all the different levels.
And this is Karen from Virginia. From an instructional perspective, one main goal when you're dealing with the different levels in your classroom is just to make sure that every student from the lowest level to the highest level experience some form of significant success in the classroom so that they don't become discouraged and want to leave the program. And we provide different supports for the students in that area. If it means bringing in an extra instructor, we do that. We offer tutoring after the class hours for those students who want to take advantage of that.
Okay, thank you all. I think we're getting toward the end, and I'm going to move us ahead now. Back to Ellen.
Yeah, thank you. And boy, that was so interesting. I just so much appreciated all the questions and the responses and the depth of information that folks shared. It's wonderful. So when we started the webinar, I encouraged us to think about the kind of contextualized elements that are within each of the stories, and level of regional employment, role of employer, type of funding supports, program design elements, immigrant participation. That came out really clear with the Minnesota picture, and a catalyst for building partnerships. And I know we don't have the time really to go through some of all the different themes that all of us may have seen in the ways that we, because we wanted to focus on the questions. But there were a couple of things that I just wanted to highlight. One is that, just to highlight that in Minnesota, when they talked about the braided funding strategy that was implemented, that the innovative twist is that the state, as of October 1, 2016, will reimburse the adult training entities for all the hard costs for the students' CNA training, plus up to 30% more reimbursement for the extra programs they do. The other is, and I'm kind of focusing on some of the funding aspects because I saw those where some of the questions emerged. In Virginia, that because of the success of the program, Plugged in Virginia is now a line item in the governor's budget. That is like so, talk about institutionalizing and building sustainability. That is just so great. I'm also so struck by how for the pathway that was that in Maine in terms of the boiler for the boiler operators, how it started in forestry and it seemed at first small. I mean, I'm assuming just dealing with one sector, and how because you had good partnerships with your employers, it grew to multi-sector, became a much more robust pathway, and extended over a lot level of skills that extended over a long period of time. So very exciting, and a lot from all of us to learn from as we begin to kind of re-look at how we can do better IET within our own practice. So we also have some resources. I think probably the first three may be the most familiar to you, but for sure, I'm assuming that because they're all very good. We use them a lot in terms of helping to develop both the webinar and also to kind of help focus where we think some of the themes are in state and national policy implementation. But I wanted to highlight the last one because it may not be as familiar to you. It's Skills Common. It's a free and online digital library, and it's from the Department of Labor, and it's the different kind of resources and skills that were collected through the various grants that they did for the Trade Adjustment Act for college and community technology programs, for the TAC programs. And it can be foreboding when you first look at it, but it can really, if you're trying to see what is the industry recognized credential or finding out specifics about an industry to help gauge your curriculum, it's a very good resource for that. And the next resource that we have, our World Education has great online courses as part of our e-learning, World Ed e-learning courses. And I wanted just to highlight them because there's one starting in November, we have some in February, and there's also a non-facilitated course, and it means it's always available on Team Teaching. We also have a facilitated course, but it's not, it's scheduled after the February times. So I encourage you to go to our website for two reasons, the National College Transition Network website for two reasons. So you can also link to the online courses there, as you can with the link that we provided. And the same, well, in addition to sending you the link of the webinar, the archived recording and PowerPoint will also be at the NCTN website. And I know there's a minute, and it needs to go to Andy.
Well, I'm just the person that gets to thank everybody. So I'm assuming Ellen joins me in thanking our presenters first of all. We've been referring to them by their state names, so we've been talking to them as though they're Maine, Virginia, and Minnesota, but they do have names. Like, so I want to specifically thank Linda Allen, Karen Gent, Pat Thomas, Ariane Farris, Lynn Michaud-Smith, and Danny McDonald for presenting today, and to thank all of you for joining us and remind you that you'll be sent this link, as Ellen said, and to the recording of the webinar. Also, there's still room in the 2 upcoming webinars if you haven't yet registered and would like to, and Ben is going to put the link to the registration link in the chat box. Ben, if you would, please. And otherwise, we are at this point saying goodbye. I hope you get some rest and have a good week. We hope to see you back on December 1. Ben? Thank you. Thank you all.